What will you do for love? I ask you again, what will you do for love? Would you sacrifice your freedom, your future, or your entire life? Today, I am going to tell you about a teenage girl who made a choice that cost her everything, and the man she loved who walked away free while she is still sitting behind bars. This is a story of Linda Pedrosa and Antoine Wright, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you are going to be questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and love. So let's go back to the year 2000. Linda Pedrosa was just 17-year-old, living her teenage life, probably dreaming about her future like most kids her age. Then she met Antoine Wright. He was 23 at the time, so a bit older than her, and somehow, despite the age gap, they started dating. Now, at first, Linda's mother, Isabelle, actually liked Antoine. She thought he seemed like a decent guy, someone who genuinely cared about her daughter. But that all changed in one single moment that would set up a chain of events nobody could have predicted. One day, Isabelle came home and caught Antoine and Linda together in a compromising situation. She walked in and found him naked with her 17-year-old daughter, Isabelle. Now you can imagine how any parent would react to that. It wasn't just about them being intimate. It was about the fact that her teenage daughter was in a relationship with a man who was clearly taking advantage of the situation. From that moment on, Isabelle did not approve of the relationship at all. She made it clear to both of them that she wasn't happy, and like any protective mother would do, she tried to put distance between her daughter and this man who she now saw as a threat to her family. But here is where things got crazy. Instead of Linda and Antoine accepting Isabelle's concern and maybe reevaluating their relationship, they went in the complete opposite direction. They became convinced that the only way they could truly be together, the only way they could have the relationship they wanted without any interference, was to get rid of Isabelle completely. What a crazy thinking. Think about that for a second. A 17-year-old girl and her 23-year-old boyfriend decided that murder was the solution to their problem. Not breaking up, not waiting until Linda was older and could make her own choice, but actual murder. On June 23rd, 2000, Linda and Antoine put their horrific plan into action. They strangled Isabelle. Just stop and think about what that means. This wasn't a moment of passion or a sudden fight got out of hand. Strangulation takes time. It takes several minutes of sustained pressure to actually kill someone that way. That means they had minutes to stop, to think about what they were doing, to realize the enormity of their actions, but they didn't stop. They continued until Linda's mother, Isabelle, was dead. But you think they will stop here? It even gets worse. After they killed her, they went down. They poured acid on her body. Now, the reason people do this in cases like this is actually to try to make identification harder, to destroy evidence, to make it more difficult for investigators to figure out the victim or how they died. And then, after all that, they took Isabelle's body and dumped it in the woods, leaving her there like she was nothing. With Isabelle out of the way, Linda and Antoine suddenly had access to something they wanted even more. They had access to her money. And what did this to do with the money that belonged to the woman they had just murdered will shock you. They went on spending spree. They bought rims for their car. They got tattoos. They threw parties. They bought a vehicle. They were living up, acting like they had just won the lottery. But here's the thing about murder. You almost never got away with it. No matter how smart you think you are, no matter how well you think you cover your tracks, investigators are trained to find the real truth. And in this case, it didn't take long at all. Less than a month after they killed Isabelle, on July 15th, 2000, both Linda and Antoine was arrested for her death. The party was over. Reality came crashing down, and now they were both facing possibilities of spending the rest of their lives in prison. But this is where the story gets really interesting and honestly really tragic. The prosecutors had strong case, but they wanted to make sure they could get conviction, so they did what prosecutors often do in cases involving multiple defendants. They offered a deal. They went to Linda first and offered her 20 years in prison if she agreed to testify against Antoine. Now, 20 years is a long time, don't get me wrong. Should have been 37 years old when she got out. But compared to what could have happened, compared to life in prison without parole, 20 years was actually a generous offer considering the brutality of the crime. But here's what Linda did. She said no. She rejected the deal. Why? Because she was blinded by love. She was still so devoted to Antoine, still so convinced that their love was protecting, that she refused to testify against him. She was willing to risk everything, her entire future, to protect the man she loved. In her mind, testifying against him would have been the ultimate betrayal. She probably thought that if she stayed loyal, if she showed him that she would never turn him in, that somehow they would get through this together. So prosecutors did what any smart legal team would do. If Linda wouldn't take the deal, they offered it to someone who would. They went to Antoine with the exact same offer, 20 years in prison if he agreed to testify against Linda. And what did Antoine do? He said yes. He accepted the deal without hesitation. The man that Linda had been so loyal to, the man she had protected by refusing to testify against him, turned around and agreed to testify against her to save his own skin. Can you imagine imagine what that must have felt for Linda. She had just thrown away a 20-year plea deal out of loyalty to this man, and he betrayed her without a second thought. It's one of the most brutal betrayals you can imagine, especially in case like this where they were partners in this crime together. Now that Antoine had agreed to testify against her, Linda's position got significantly worse. She no longer had the leverage she had before. The prosecutors didn't need her testimony anymore because they had Antoine. So when they came back to Linda with another offer, it wasn't 20 years anymore. It was 40 years, double the original sentence. And this time, Linda didn't have a choice. She had to take it or risk spending the rest of her life in prison. She was forced to accept a reverse plea deal of 40 years in prison because she had gambled on loyalty and lost everything. Antoine Wright was released from prison in 2018 after serving his time. He's out there now living his life a free man. Meanwhile, Linda Pedrosa remains locked up. She's still serving her 40-year sentence according to the terms to be released in 2038. She has spent decades behind bars. She went to prison as a 17-year-old girl. She will come out as a middle-aged woman. Think about everything she has missed. Her entire 20s gone. Her entire 30s gone. Her 40s gone. Most of her 50s will be gone too. No career, no family, no experience that most of us take for granted today. All because of a decision she made when she was 17 years old. A decision influenced by a man who ultimately didn't care about her the way she cared about him. This case raises so many questions about love, loyalty, and manipulation. Was Linda truly in love, or was she being manipulated by an older man who knew exactly how to control a teenage girl? We will probably never know the full extent of their dynamic, but it's hard not to wonder. This story is a reminder that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Actions have consequences that last far longer than we ever imagined. Linda Pedrosa will be in her 50s before she breathes free air again, and even then, the life she comes back to will be nothing like the one she left behind. What a crazy situation. Don't forget, on this channel we post twice a week, Monday and Friday. Until I come away again next time, do well to like, comment, and also share this video. I remain Joshua Adejo. Bye for now.